This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it. Hi folks, and welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today on the show is going to be one of our technical episodes. If you haven't done so already, please do like and or subscribe on the chosen platform that you're looking at. And if you turn notifications on, then you will get notified when our next episodes are becoming available. Today, on our technical episode, we're going to be trying our best because it's not yet been implemented and we're still waiting for some explanations, but to get through the recently passed Renters' Rights Bill that has just been put through and signed off for royal assent. So we're going to be welcoming to the show today, rather than Tim Witt, who doesn't have any impact necessarily in the letting and management side of our business. We're going to be welcoming Amber Chadwick.
Hello.
Hi, Amber. So Aussie for Aussie again, keeping the Aussie flag flying strong.
Yep.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Why are you here today, and what your authority is on this matter?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Amber Chadwick. I run Invest Multi-Let Property Management. We're a HMO specialist managing agency all across Greater Manchester, and I manage just shy of 400 tenancies now. So yeah, lots to do, lots to adapt with and overcome, which is
you've just
great.
delivered our first Teams training for renters reform and with policy changes and things like that we're trying to adapt, obviously in advance. So when is it, May?
May is the first
May 26th.
implementation.
Yeah, first implementation phase. Okay. So let's just say with 400 tenancies, you are reasonably authoritative of all things tenanting.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, both with lettings and compliance. So I'm just on the topics we're going to cover. Changes in the AST structure itself. Section 21 is an abolishment. New grounds for evictions. Yes. We're going to talk about Section 8 specifically, if that's all right. Minor things that don't really affect us, like rent bidding and rent in advance. Rent in advance does. And then things like, I get asked a lot about this with HMO landlords. Pets, benefits children.
Yes.
And then opportunities, because it's not all downsides, right?
No.
So it is, and actually I kind of tend to agree with most of it, which is hard from a from a landlord point of view. But okay, so shall we start just right at the top? Is that cool with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to keep this conversational because I've got some thoughts on each of these matters myself from an investment point of view. But let's talk all things. We're going to have to stop using the word AST, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
because it's going to be no longer.
It's no longer an AST. Do you know what it's going to be called?
It's just periodic.
Periodic tenancy.
Yeah, so
just a tenancy.
It's a rolling tenancy. So from date of move-in, a tenant can provide 2 months' notice to vacate the property. So there's no more fixed-term tenancies anymore. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think this is where the quality of service is really going to shine, and the higher quality properties is going to, they'll prevail. Yeah.
So if you are a tenant, technically the landlord can give 2 months notice, but you'd have to have a ground, right? Which we'll talk about in a little while. But so at the moment, you can sign up to and agree to a fixed period of time, and which is your statutory period.
Yes.
Which means that once you've signed up, you can't leave necessarily without penalty. That's what we're saying. Even then, at the end of your statutory period, if you don't agree a new statutory period, you then move on to a rolling contract. And then normally that would be we have it as 1 month.
It's 1 month, yes. 1 month notice to vacate.
Can you set it as a different notice anyway at the moment or not? I'm not sure you can you?
Know about that,
I don't
actually.
think we've even looked at it ever.
Yeah.
Maybe you can. I don't know. But yeah, so what I think you can, of course, you should be able to. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that.
It's too late now, mate.
In 6 months, that's going to be null and void.
It's too late now. But I reckon you could have put in the contract.
Yeah, potentially.
But yeah, so we're coming up with 2 months notice from day one. So no fixed terms, no that kind of stuff, which, there's certain pockets of provision that are going to suffer more than others.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're still debating student part and that kind of thing. We've got like 8, 9, 10 month tenancies, which I think is still to be fleshed out fully, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But tends to be, is that a problem?
No. I mean, if we look at it this way, Scotland's already had this since 2016 or 2017.
Yeah.
And it's made no impact on the average tenancy length.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have the odd person that
Yeah.
is, just going to move in and want to move out in 2 months. Say they're moving overseas or whatever
Something
it is.
goes wrong in the job or...
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
There are going to be cases where we do see an impact here. But I think, if you look at us as humans, where we crave consistency, why would you want to move house every 2 months?
It's a ball ache.
Horrible.
Yeah. It's an absolute ball ache.
I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact as what some people think. But I think 2 months notice is excellent for us in terms of a tenanting timeline. Because if you've watched the previous episode that we did on our tenancy management and how to maintain your financial freedom, we spoke briefly on the tenanting timeline that we currently have and what we view as good, and that's a 6-week timeline. Whereas now having 2 months, so that's 8 weeks plus 2 weeks contingency, that's 10 weeks to tenant a room. Which is even better in terms of void avoidance.
It gives you more chance to choose good tenants, more chance to to have an extended advertising timeline.
More viewings.
So from a quality perspective, you might risk the odd tenant giving 2 months notice, but from my practical point of view, is one of the key pain points we have is that also in fixed term tenancies is people wanting to leave early and they want to give, and what tends to happen is something happens in their life, they're in a tenancy, they need to leave for whatever reason. They've lost a job, can't afford the rent anyway, let's say. That tends to be a thing. Somebody moves for a job, it doesn't work out, and they have to move away. At that point, you've got maybe 3 months, 4 months left on a tenancy. If it's within 2 months, if it's a minimum 6-month term, what's that tenant supposed to do? They have to leave because they can't afford to stay there anymore. So all that's going to happen is either they're going to say, listen, is there any way for me to leave early, in which case you're going to the landlord and or trying to ask them to cover costs for the landlord, which is something that we do now proactively, or they're just going to leave. And not tell you.
We have had that happen before. Walked up to a room and the person's just left.
Yeah, they just left. No notice, just gone. Just disappearing teeth. They're taking a chance that you're not going to do anything about it. And, what can happen there is that you're then left holding the baby, chasing rents that don't exist, having to do, money claim online, all that type of stuff if you want to chase them again. And if it's an international person, well,
it's pretty hard to recover.
That's the luck, right?
Unfortunately.
So, but giving that tenant the opportunity to give 2 months notice, then the only ones that you then need to worry about in practice, because let's say all of those people are still going to have the same problem. If they need to leave, they have to leave. That's still the same problem. So those people are already being addressed. If they can give 2 months notice, they're more likely to give 2 months and pay the rent.
Yeah, because the weight of the contract is less.
Yes. So that's actually a positive in my book.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas the one that we need to focus on is the ones that have a bad experience moving in.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if you have a bad experience moving into something, but you're currently locked into a 6-month contract, that you may relax after a period of time, but tends to be, we've seen it before where a tenant's had a bad conversation with another tenant in a shared accommodation within the first couple of days, and they've gone, I need to leave. I feel threatened or any type of thing. It's not that they are being threatened, but I just don't feel comfortable in my living environment. A week later, they're best friends. Under the new program, that person might give notice.
Yeah,
and say I'm leaving in 2 months.
Yeah, I think compensation for, bad experiences, if it's warranted, is going to be really important. And the speed of that is going to be like the speed of implementation for compensation for, if, say, for example, they have had an altercation with someone, or, you've got a maintenance issue that's popped up in between them moving out. The previous tenant moving out and then moving in. It's just understanding what we can do to really to make that feel.
It's just expectation management half the time. I see it all the time, which is just making sure that the house knows someone's moving in, that they know how many other people are living in the house. Just literally, if we can make it as comfortable as possible for that person to arrive, get settled in. Checking in with them, making sure everything's gone okay. All those steps that we take that we're doing naturally anyway, but now just really being a focus on it because if you start something well, my theory is that if it starts well, it ends well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't disagree with that. When I was in the recruitment space, my risk so let's say I put somebody into a permanent job, my risk was always the first 6 to 8 weeks. So I would literally have my own process to talk to somebody after week 1. How did you feel? Could the company have done anything to make you feel more comfortable? How you get on with your line manager? I'd have the same question with the line manager.
how's his first week gone? Is there anything we can do to try and make his settling in more comfortable? And then I'd be checking in every couple of weeks until week 6 or 8. So there's anything that I could do. Sometimes it's just a conversation with somebody as well, which is, I wasn't sure about this. And you just get it solved. And if I did those things, even though it's very minor because I'm not with that person all the time, chances are I might be able to resolve an issue. Whereas if you just left them to it, then, or they had a bad experience in day when you didn't check in, do anything about it, and then you got unfortunately I've had to leave, or I've had to let this person go, rebates for fees that you might charge, that kind of stuff. So very similar process.
A lot of things can be resolved with a conversation.
A tenant moves into somewhere, it's scary. I remember moving into the three new properties that I lived in and that was shared. And I know this is more a shared experience than anything else, but it was scary. But even with single lets, I mean, you turn up to a single let, you don't know where the key is, you don't know where the key box is, you don't know who's letting you in, you don't know how to get your keys, you don't know who to meet, you don't know when your tenancy started. All those things combined, can cause a problem.
Yeah,
right?
But it's communication that will solve that.
So if you get that front end right, well, I think that combats that experience level person. So then, or if we get that bit right, then the only thing we need to worry about is the people we've already had a problem with. Tends to be, because you're right, the average tenancy hasn't changed.
It's not changed. And I think there's a bit of that, but there's also maintenance timeframes, setting expectation for repairs, because that can be something that causes tension with tenants. If they don't have that expectation, or they have a preconceived idea that their Wi-Fi is going to be fixed within 24 hours, even though it's the provider, not us. So it's all about communication, really. It's really gonna.
And it's a key. Like we had one recently where I got an email from a council saying this person's told me that the heating's not been working for 6 weeks. I was like, that's not true.
No.
They just didn't know where the boost button was on the heating process. And I was like, well, they haven't even raised it as a maintenance task. I was thinking, so I was like, that person needs to read the documents.
They just need to know how to communicate with us, and it's all good. But I think from what I see there, though, is if they've been invited to our communication system, but it's not been accepted.
They haven't. Exactly.
What we could do as an agency to ensure that, that person is comfortable with utilizing our system, because it is our system at the end of the day. And we do occasionally get some older tenants. They're not all fresh out of.
Ageist that, mate.
Well, no, but it's not. Not everyone knows how to use an app. It can be. Being of a generation where I've grown up around technology, it's very easy for me to pick. It's very intuitive for me, right? Agree, It's not always intuitive for some people, and it's giving someone a bit of slack on that.
No, trying to get if I was trying to get my parents, potentially my father a little bit better, but my parents onto an app. My dad might be all right, mum would be all over the shop. So,
my mum's better than me, so I'm not ageist.
I was only joking. So it's a good point, isn't it? And it also comes down to tenant experience. So we run a 7-day tenant concierge service, really, don't we? That's what we kind of call it, from our first line support. So they should be getting responses really, really quickly. So the breakdown is just in how they communicate at that point, isn't it? So okay, cool. So again, and if you're worried about those things, you're worried about this type of stuff, then you need to check on the quality of the service you're providing, in my opinion. Because if your agency isn't doing anything differently, or isn't trying to improve certainly the onboarding of tenant processes, or can't give you an answer on how are you going to make sure that expectations are managed for maintenance tasks and repairs, then maybe that's something that you need to have a conversation with them. It's going to require a better service at this point.
Absolutely. And I think something that we've implemented straight away is we did have sales targets for our consultants to achieve 12-month ASTs and 8-month ASTs instead of 6 months. We've completely drawn that out now, because this implementation is May. So that's 6 months away. So why would we put, a potential additional pressure on a sale if it's going to be null and void anyway? So we've completely cut that out now.
It's better for us just to have tenancies that go periodic from the 31st of April. Otherwise we've got to reissue stuff, right?
Unless a tenant requests it. Then,
cool.
I think on that, though, any tenancies won't have to be re-signed. So
there might be a notice that we have to provide.
Maybe a notice, but all ASTs as they are will just automatically move into periodic with notice.
There's some communication. I think there'll be communication.
Yes. Cool. I would like to send something to our tenants.
Lovely. So the key thing that people are most panicking about is the Section 21 notice. So let's dive into that, because that's being abolished. So what is a Section 21 notice, first and foremost?
So this is your eviction notice. So your Section 21 is your no grounds. No fault evictions, which, I mean, you're, more on that end of things than I am. But the only
legal
real, well, not so much, well, yes, but I also mean from a landlord's perspective,
Yes.
right? I think the only impact that I really see here is if a landlord's trying to sell a property and they want their tenants out. I think there is going to be an element of difficulty here because you can't just serve a Section 21 and that is a no-fault eviction.
Yeah.
So that's the only real impact that I see. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, there is a new ground
Yes.
for
Okay.
sale, actually, if you haven't picked up on
there
that.
we go.
So, yeah.
Didn't read that one.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, we need to talk about that.
That bit.
Yeah, well, we're not
perfect.
going to manage that really, are we, unless the landlord requests it. So, yeah, I'll talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, so Section 21, let's talk about that. So, my experience with Section 21 is it's never no fault.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Why are you trying to get rid of a tenant?
We don't.
If the tenant pays you and, they're subject to the rules and regulations around a tenancy, under what purpose are you trying to get rid of that tenant? So normally there is a reason. Yep. So it's not even real. No fault isn't true.
I mean, we don't use them. I can't remember the last time we served a Section 21. We always go on grounds.
Yeah. So ground. Well, we would. Yeah, because it's easier if there's grounds, right? So you can be specific.
Got evidence.
Yeah. But from a Section 21 perspective, it was mainly used where they were worried that tenants were maybe causing a nuisance, or they just irregular payments that didn't quite fall under Section 8, or like you said, somebody might want their property back. So it was they just want to sell it or move into it as a family home or whatever. So Section 21 was widely used for those things. So technically, no fault isn't true, is it?
Yeah.
There was always a reason. It isn't fault, but there was grounds. There was grounds for taking it back. And also, one awful process, by the way. The Section 21 process. It just, anytime someone says, I want to serve Section 21 notice, it just makes my heart sink, because the Section 21 notice is subject to so many nuances that you have to have served the right notices, served the right paperwork. Things like deposit has to be protected in 30 days. You have to have had them sign the prescribed information certificate if you're using a custodial one. You have to have provided them with the right renters' rights information, all those types of things.
Big process.
Oh, it's huge. And if you haven't done those things, you need to reserve it. And if you do all those things, or you have a fault in those processes, and you serve Section 21, and you then go to court for eviction, they just throw it out.
Yeah.
So there's a technical issue.
You've missed this one small part of the application process.
yeah, exactly. Or if you don't do your application correctly, or if you don't turn up to court with a tabbed version that the judge can quickly read, because they don't look at it beforehand.
No.
They want you to provide it on the day in a tabbed version to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's fine. Done. Next. They don't want to talk about any of those things. And it was such a flawed process anyway. I'm actually kind of glad it's gone.
Yeah.
Because it had been targeted for trying to improve process and get rid of stuff. And it was, I don't know anybody that we have who've abused it, but I have seen it abused as a system as well. I have seen the horror stories and things like that.
Yeah.
And Shelter as an organisation have obviously targeted this as a reason for homelessness. I don't think it's one of the key reasons, but I do think it's going to be a problem I actually think it's a good thing not having, if I'm totally open.
I agree.
Because eviction is eviction. So there should normally be a ground, and there are new grounds. So as an example, if you want to sell your property, there's a new section notice for selling your property.
There you go.
But the difference here is the Section 21 notice was 2 months. This is 4.
Okay.
So it's a 4-month notice period. As far as I'm aware, in the last reading.
I mean, in terms of sale, that's probably not.
Yeah, it's not taking that time anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time you get it in the market and you start looking at people and the conveyancing process starts and that kind of thing, it's going to give you that time. The problem is if you don't sell it, the problem is that you're then locked in for a period of time before you can re-tenant. I don't know what that time is. I don't know if it's been shortened, but I think they were proposing 12 months.
Wow.
So that means that you have to, because otherwise people are just going to use and abuse it again, right?
Oh, okay. They'll put it up for sale,
kick
tenants out,
then get new tenants in.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's a good thing to have a lockout timeline and so on. I think that's the right thing to do. But yeah, so new grounds for sale. There's also new grounds for the traditional use of Section 8, which was rent arrears. So Section 8 had lots of grounds. So there's antisocial behaviour, there's all these type of things. But the normal one that people used it for was rent arrears. So rent arrears currently, this is the one I don't agree with, being totally open. And the reason being is currently, if you give a Section 8 notice, you can do that after 2 rental payments.
2 months of missed rent.
Yeah. Right. You now have to go to 3 months.
Ooh.
And I disagree with that.
Yeah.
The reason I disagree with that is if somebody hasn't paid for 2 months, they're not going to pay for the 3rd month.
No.
Technically speaking, all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. I'm not sure that is a positive. That's
I've
the one
had a judge had a go at me for a tenant that got to 6 months in arrears, and they were like, "Why would you let it get past anything over 2?"
Yeah.
I copped the brunt of that. I was like, "Excuse me."
Yeah. Why have you allowed
the court date took forever?
Why have you allowed the tenant to build their debt?
Yeah.
So the judicial point of view is you don't let the tenant build a debt up. If they're getting into debt, get them out of it, because the debt will only build and it'll be a problem.
Yes.
It's a very good point. The whole point of this is you don't want people to get into debt, because this can kill people's future credit purposes, because as a landlord, and this is the one thing that I think is, if I was willing to let 1 to 2 months rent go, if it's now 3 to 4, I'm going to chase it.
Absolutely.
The rent debt is much higher.
Much, much higher.
And you're more likely to get into credit issues at that point, because
CCJ.
Yeah, exactly. Down the CCJ route. And the whole point of getting these in to secure people's tenancies more is for homeless avoidance. One of the slippery slopes to that is
bad credit.
Because we now, as a lettings agency,
we won't accept anyone with a CCJ.
Absolutely not. So, and the rental supply hasn't gone up, it's going down. It's harder to bring properties back to the market. It's harder to renovate properties, EPC changes, that kind of stuff. So we're not building enough, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
and then it's also the modern home standard that's a part of the reform as well, which is going to be a later implementation, but that in itself is going to mean the supply is even worse.
Yeah. And, the net growth of the population is only going one way, and the net supply against that growth the gap is widening, so there's less homes available, and you're going to be more punitive towards people. Yeah. It's that simple. So, but you're more likely to get into credit. I don't think that's smart as a move, but we'll see what happens, I guess. So 3 months, not 2. I do think that's it.
I think that's pushing it, but we'll see.
One that we've never really done or seen, but I know it works, is rent bidding.
Yes.
I had to look at this, say, what is rent bidding? And I was like, oh, well, whoever offers the most rent wins, right? So you might put it on the market for, let's say it's Manchester, let's say it's £1,000 for a terrace house, and someone comes in and says, oh, well, I'll offer 1,200. So is that what this is?
Yeah. So it's basically anything above what's marketed can be accepted based on, I think this is more common in places like London, where the supply is even worse.
Yeah.
And I know it does happen in Sydney as well, where I'm from. People bid above what's marketed to secure the property. We don't really get that here. It's not really that common. I mean, I've never personally.
Don't get me wrong, I'd love it if someone came and offered me more money for my property.
Well, now it's illegal. A landlord cannot accept any more rent than what's marketed.
So how is that going to be policed, do you think? I don't know how. It'd have to be like snitches, right? The tenant who takes the property would have to know the law and report it to the local authority or whatever.
Yeah, I don't.
Then the landlord might get a fine or something, I guess.
Yeah. As I said, it's not something that we do anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I'd be keen to understand a little bit more in terms of how it'd be enforced anyway.
Yeah.
And the one that does affect us though, which I disagree with, rent in advance.
Yes.
So rent in advance. Do you want to explain what that means?
Yeah, so it's anything more than 1 month rent paid prior to the tenancy beginning, or sometimes sometimes people like paying every 6 months, which I personally never understood in terms of, their own cash flow perspective. Why would you do that? Just pay monthly.
Well, if you're a foreign student or a foreign person coming to the country and you don't have a credit record or anything that kind of thing, you might say, listen, I'm not going to cause a problem. Here's 6 months. I'm only signing a 6 month tenancy anyway,
I think it's so dangerous for a landlord to accept 6 months in advance anyway, because after that 6 months, the tenant is not used to paying rent on a regular basis, so they're far more likely to just stop paying rent and occupying the property.
Yeah, I think certainly from a HMO perspective, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Single let, I'm less inclined. And the reason for that is, for that very reason, it might be somebody who just doesn't have a credit record.
Yes.
First move out of home or whatever. Yeah. Maybe they are trying to get over the fact that they have no credit rating, or the credit rating is quite low because they've never had a credit card. Those tend to be the kind of people that you want anyway. And it's a case of, if they can still prove their employment and income, you've got to take a view on that individual. In terms of whether or not they have, if they have a good job and unlikely to cause you any problems, then yeah. Where I think it is now a bigger problem is people have also used it to try and overcome previous objections. So if you've got a slight credit problem, you may offer somebody, listen, I've got a credit problem, I'm happy to pay in advance.
Yeah.
You know, and they're taking that away.
People use that as a guarantor option.
Yes.
Which I completely disagree with.
Yeah.
If someone needs a guarantor, they should be using a guarantor. If they don't have a guarantor, then there's company guarantors. You know, I think it's
if they qualify for that though.
Yes.
They may not qualify.
Yeah. Yeah, potentially. If they do have the buy credit, depends on which you know,
my concern is that now we're going to 3 months debt plus notice, you know, which means that you're going to have to go through the courts at that point, and then you're going to build up a larger debt, which is more likely to be chased. You then maybe get a bad credit, and then the next time, and let's say you've done that, you've had no choice. Let's say you've had absolutely no choice because you've just had a really bad situation. The landlord's now got no choice but to chase you because they have a bad situation. You know, they've got a mortgage payment to pay. You know, you're in this now bubble of cause and effect, which is you've stayed in the property for as long as possible because you've got nowhere else to go, and you can't get sheltered accommodation or anything like that until you're evicted because the council won't provide it normally for most people, which means the landlord's more likely to chase you for the debt, which means that you might be more likely to get credit problems in the future. And then you get yourself back on your feet, you declare it up front to somebody, say, listen, I've got a credit problem, this was the situation, this is my current situation now, but I would like to, you know, guarantee it in a certain way. You're not going to be able to do that. It's that simple. Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
It's so difficult, right? Because this is the renters' rights bill, and I don't think it's providing renters much more rights than.
I think it's removing their ability to negotiate.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the opposite of what you should be doing. You should be giving them more leeway to become good tenants.
Yeah.
You know, and responsible. It's always the they would say, oh, it's the bad landlords, right? But you're also eliminating the good landlords. You know, so why can't a good landlord negotiate a deal with a tenant that they want to take a chance on? You know, we've had to actually then get rid of that tenant that they took a chance on. Do you remember? You remember?
Yes.
Yeah, the one in. Oh God, what a nightmare! So not only did they
It's like a 12-month endeavor.
not only did they let that person in, they took a guaranteed amount for a period of time, but they even let them have a pet of the you know, that kind of stuff.
Nightmare.
And the tenant became real problematic.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I just think it's, and you can't take a larger deposit because that's restricted for 5 weeks. I am fearful for that. I fear that this is going to cause a bigger problem. And unless they then say to people, you are not allowed to check someone's credit, at which point, you know, it becomes madness, because how would you vet that person at that point? I think that's the big thing that's the blind spot for me that people haven't looked at. So rent in advance, yeah, you can't do it. Now, there's a few bits here: pets, people on benefits, and children. So talk to me about those bits, because those are specific items that have been nominated within the renters reform. Let's talk about pets. What's the pet situation?
Well, I mean, as a blanket of the all three of those points, it's anti-discriminatory, basically, is what they're aiming to achieve.
Because I'm a pet lover, by the way.
Oh, same. I had 13 cats and a dog and hermit crabs and lizards growing up. I, you know, love animals, and I, you know, would absolutely love to have a pet over here. I think do you want to talk about it in terms of from a HMO perspective, or just
I guess both, just general, what is the reform, and then we can talk about how it would be reflected.
So they're looking at implementing, basically, landlords can't say no to pets, but they may request pet insurance, which means that, you know, renters do have more rights to have pets in a property, which I'm all for. And I think, you know, there are good pet insurance options available, but how is that monitored?
It's a huge mental health benefit, isn't it, to having a pet?
Massively. And post, you know, C19 days, I think, you know, you've got a lot of people with emotional support animals, and I think it is a really positive thing for everyone's lives. But I think, how is the insurance?
What's the difference between an emotional support animal and a normal pet?
Nothing,
is it? It's not really, is it? Because my dog's an emotional support animal for me. And I wouldn't class her as technically qualified in any situation.
It's just bonkers. You've got a boxer. That's more chaos.
But I love that. Because I'm too grounded. And now, there was a debate about whether or not you could request pet insurance. Is that been settled? Was it excluded? I think it was excluded in the end, was it?
Oh, was it?
I think so. I'm not 100%. Maybe we need to check that item.
Yeah,
but
I do need to double check on that. Sorry.
I'm fairly sure that what they were saying is that you couldn't demand a pet insurance policy, or it became the landlord's responsibility. I was thinking about it myself, which was I might take out the pet insurance myself anyway and just add it to a charge on the rent.
Yeah.
You know, similar to the way that I would charge separately for
like bills.
I'd maybe separate insurance. I'm not sure how that would sit, but maybe
from a legal standpoint,
maybe we check
need
that.
to have a look at that.
Because if it's an insurance policy, I'd probably want it in my company name, because the problem with insurance is it can be cancelled.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
So you can take it in December and you cancel it in January and you don't pay for it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, there's no more pet insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
So I'd probably want it in the landlord's name anyway. And I thought that's where they were going with it. You know, I thought, oh, well, maybe it's because the landlord just has to bake it into their rent.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
So
I'll have to have a look into that.
maybe we'll look at that as a thing, because like I said, we'll probably have to do another one by the time May comes around, right?
Oh, honestly.
Yeah.
Chopping and changing.
What does it actually look like?
Can't keep up.
So yeah, pets are going to be more allowable now. There are restrictions, of course.
Yes.
There has to be a good reason for a restriction, and I'm pretty sure a HMO license is a good reason. Yeah. I don't think you're allowed.
Imagine cats in a HMO and you've got a tenant that's allergic, and
we had one recently.
Yeah.
Somebody had a cat.
Oh, and they had it locked in the bathroom too. I wanted to go over there and
get the RSPCA. Yeah.
Do not lock a cat in a bathroom.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure that's a shared accommodation is the reason.
And also, you know, a single bedroom is not a space for an animal.
No.
You know, unless it is a small rodent.
Goldfish.
Yeah. Goldfish, fine.
Yeah.
Get a fish.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Don't get a fish.
Yeah.
Don't get a fish. I'm pretty sure that there is an issue from a HMO perspective with pets. Right. Okay. Benefits. This is a non-discriminatory thing.
It's again, I don't know how they're going to monitor this.
Yeah.
But it basically implies that you can't discriminate against tenants on benefits.
Yeah.
Again, how they monitor this and how that's actually policed is going to be really interesting.
Well, it's interesting because it depends as well, because a lot of working people actually also get top-ups, right? So I think it was something like 30% of benefit claimants that are actually working or something like that. So they get like top-ups, you know, rather than full benefits. And I guess it's affordability, right? So it depends on what you're applying for as well, because if your benefits are way lower, you're not going to pass affordability.
Yes.
And that is different to just not wanting somebody who is on benefits.
Yes.
Just being on benefits doesn't make you a bad tenant.
No.
By the way.
No, not at all.
It's only the same as somebody who earns money. You get money into your bank. You get a benefit into your bank. Whether you pay the rent is still your responsibility. You know, I don't see any major differences between those two things.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here. So from a HMO standpoint, there's the flow of the house, right? If you've got someone on benefits who is 100% reliant on those benefits for their, you know, day-to-day survival, generally that will mean there's a level of care implied. Generally, not always, but a lot of the time. And I think a shared housing environment does not support that. You know, you've got
benefits with care. You know, we're not
a care provider. It's not.
We have had that where someone's declared it after they moved in.
Yes.
And then said, for moving forwards, you will have to negotiate or talk to my social worker. At that point, we just say, no, I'm sorry, this is, you know, we're not qualified.
Absolutely.
You are responsible for tenancy, and therefore we have to also ask you to leave. Now, that might seem harsh, but it's genuinely for their good as well. Yeah. Right? It's not right for them.
No.
But generally, we do have tenants who've got like universal credit top-ups and things like that, and they've been fine. You know, they've had no issues.
I think in terms of the flow of a house, especially from HMO standpoint, is you want to have working professionals that have, you know, similar lifestyles or ambitions in terms of they are working and they are actively doing things to contribute and to benefit themselves. And I think that's, you know, obviously, you've got to tread lightly with wording and things in terms of discrimination.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to be policed from, you know, is that from point of inquiry?
I think it's going to be complaint based.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's going to be addressed individually as a complaint. So I think from a processing point of view, you're going to have to be really tight on your reasoning. So if someone just doesn't meet affordability, so let's say the rent is £1,000, they can only show affordability for 800. That's a valid reason for not renting to that person. If somebody can show £1,000 easily is affordable based on their affordability screening, even if part of that is a benefit, and you say no, I think you're in a world of trouble there if they complain. If that's if there's other reasons. I mean, again, though, you don't have to commercially tenant to somebody, right? It's your product at the end of the day. You don't have to, if you're worried about a thing, but you'll have to document the reasons, I think. So let's say they became aggressive during the rental process or anything like that. You just need to document that item to say this person became very rude during the renting process and made me feel like it wasn't the right person that I would let to.
Yeah.
I think that's going to still be fine, but you will have to document things more, certainly.
I mean, people are grey area, It's
you can be a
range,
you can be a superstar tenant on benefits. You can be the worst tenant you've ever imagined on benefits. You can be a superstar working professional. You can be the worst person to have a tenant to as a working professional. We've seen them all, right? So
absolutely.
Cool. So documentation is going to be key on that.
Yes.
Is it children?
Yeah.
Was this a thing?
Okay, to be honest, I didn't read that part because
children. Anyway,
HMOs, you're not having a child live there.
Yeah.
Obviously we do have some tenants that are parents and they will, have their child in the house, maybe a few nights a week or something. And obviously it would be inhumane for us to say no to that. But at the end of the day, it's not really the right environment for a child. There's a lot of coming and going. And I just think, about when you look at a front door, for example, being open, if it's on a main road, that always concerns me a little bit. But
from a license perspective as well, it's, guests, it's a known thing, isn't it, that if you have a HMO room and you have an overnight guest, okay, regardless of the reason for that guest, that's fine. But occupancy is key, isn't it? So if someone's there 7 nights a week, that's occupation, right? So someone's there 1 to 2 nights a week, then I'd say that's guest. And it's that middle ground of, it's 3, is it 4, is it 5? We don't actually have a set hard and fast guidance on that. But the key thing for us is it's a license perspective. Is you're licensed to the number of occupants anyway, so you'd have the reason to say no.
Yes.
But at the same time, for my single let properties, I'm trying to find a reason why I wouldn't want children anyway. I don't really understand it.
No, it does, and it kind of goes back to before about the restrictions on upfront costs and things. But it does make me really sad the amount of inquiries that we do get on rooms with families, and we do have to turn them away because it is at the end of the day, A, not the right environment, and B, we've got licensing restrictions.
It's funny because I've got a planning committee meeting on Tuesday night because we've applied for one of our existing HMOs, 2 of the rooms to allow couples, because we get so many applications for couples.
It's insane.
And couples and families are applying for HMOs just to indicate the level of requirement for accommodation in the UK.
Oh my gosh,
it's huge. So we get these all the time and we don't have anywhere to house them. So we'll see what the planning committee says, but the rooms are big enough, 20-meter room with a kitchen and with a kitchenette and an ensuite for a couple. It's just, in London, that's a penthouse flat, right?
Honestly.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's bills included as well.
Yeah, with bills included.
It's such a good way to, save money with your partner and to have that space and, you've got your own private area and I just think it's such a good option and it's so affordable for people. But we'll see what plans.
And actually, there was a lot of hoo-ha about the benefits cap, about the child benefits cap being lifted from 2 people as well, from 2 children. Did you know about this?
No.
So this is not renters' rights. So the child benefit cap was raised, and I thought it was a good thing.
Okay.
Because it abolished it. And people were saying, oh, well, you can have as many children as you want now and that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, come on, guys. They're going to have them anyway.
Actually, do it to yourself.
But it's about child poverty. And it's thinking about, well, actually, that person might be able to afford better accommodation for their children now.
Yes.
And they may pass more affordability. So that's a positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If that person can pay a slightly higher rent or can actually afford to rent, they don't have to be applying for HMO room because they've got 4 kids and can't afford with 1 income to pay for 6 people. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know whether it's probably the anti-investor's point of view at that point, but I saw a lot of hoo-ha about it and I was thinking, that's short. I can't get on board with this. Maybe because I came through the care system at a very early age myself, I've got a different viewpoint. But I think children should be treasured, in our communities anyway. Right?
Yeah. Takes a village.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much the main changes we've covered. So anything else you can spot? We can talk about opportunities maybe. The one change, and it's an opportunity, so I'll use this, is the new grounds for. So where they've got rid of the Section 21 notices, and we said, look, there's I've never known a Section 21 notice for no fault. So you're either selling it or you're just not happy with that tenant, right? Yeah. So maybe they're falling behind with 1 month, they don't qualify for a mandatory Section 8 or whatever. The good point about these things is there's now tighter grounds and there's easier measurements for some of these grounds. The key one's antisocial behaviour, in my opinion, because that has been a grey area, right? And we're we're trying to get rid of someone antisocial at the minute. It's hard.
I've got a second one now from yesterday, and we've even got a crime reference number to go off. But unfortunately, the police can't provide us any details about the crime because it's not been reported by us. So again, it's grey area. It's so difficult to get evidence for antisocial behaviour unless you've got, witness statements and direct accounts, and it's got to be so detailed, and it's got to be a written statement.
That was the key.
Detailed.
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now they're saying, right, well, if you have clear evidence and the evidence is now documentary and it doesn't have to be official, which was before you might need a crime reference number. And they haven't got, we haven't got time to, someone's been antisocial in the house. We don't have time. They don't have time to come out and, judge whether or not that antisocial behaviour warrants a crime reference number. And also, why are you trying to, it just might be that person isn't right for that accommodation.
Yeah,
absolutely. Some people just aren't designed for shared living.
Yeah.
No community living. Also.
I'm not. I know that.
Yeah. So,
it'd be horrible to live with.
So now we've got that position of there's actual clear grounds for that now.
Yeah.
Which I think is a better situation. I think it's still Section 8.
Yes.
But there's actually clear.
It's Section 8 ground 8. ASB.
Yeah. So I think and the fact that they've recognised this is a real positive thing.
Yeah.
Especially for HMO owners and shared accommodation owners, because if you get 4 witness statements against the 5th tenant that they're acting in an unsocial way, you can shoot. You don't have to go any further than that. That's enough. Whereas before, I just thought you had to get counsel complaint. You had to complain to the council. You had an agency and had to document it to all relevant local authorities, which was too much. It was too much. So yeah, I think that's a positive. So in terms of that opportunity, we talked about the tenanting timeline again.
Yes.
Giving people, I think that's like the 2 months is a good opportunity. And people worried about, I can't give fixed term tenancies. Okay. So what you worried? And I suppose when he's worried about his property being abused by somebody who would normally go to an Airbnb. So, okay, this is a risk.
Yes.
This particular property was not a risk, right? Who's Airbnb at this flat, mate? Nobody's Airbnb in there. So what we're talking about here now is like somebody moving into property giving notice on day one because they did it deliberately. It's such a low risk, right? I mean, you'd have to be really...
and even still then, you've got 2 months to re-tenant the property.
Yeah.
2 whole months.
Yeah.
That is so much time.
Yeah.
So much
There's a cost balance to it though, right?
Yes.
So
of course.
You've got potential period of voids for check in and check out. You've got potential tenant fine fees and things that you need to pay. But I just think it's such a low risk.
Yeah, and I think, if you do have an agency that charges a tenant fine fee, negotiate an all-in rate.
Yeah. We've got an all-in rate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We offer both.
I think there's a balance in that though. Don't just run into it. Let's see what happens. Because tends to be, if you've got average tenancies over like 13, 14 months, you better just
stick to the lower rate and having the
lower rate. If it doesn't shorten, then maybe have a look at the all-in rate. It is easy to forecast an all-in rate, but I wouldn't jump straight in with both feet. And again though, it's always forgetting the fact that you will, like, the tenants who need to leave quickly tend to be the ones that have the most rental debt on leaving.
Yes.
Right?
It's true.
So if you looked at all of the tenants that we've had rental arrears from, I would say 60-70% of those are because they've had to leave shorter than the period of time that they wanted to give. So if you now have a clear 2 months mandated notice period, it's like, no, it's just 2 months. You just need to pay 2 months rent.
It's more accessible.
It's more accessible. Yeah, exactly. It's way better. I think that's a huge opportunity and people are looking at it in the wrong way, in my opinion. I'd rather pay one more tenant fine fee and have a shorter void with no debt than, somebody who could be up to not even know they've left. And then you're saying, oh, why didn't you know you left to the agent? It's like, well, it's a 6-month tenancy. If I don't hear from them, they don't say anything to me. Yeah. The first thing I know is that they haven't paid their rent. If I then chase them for that rent, they don't communicate.
Then we do
2 weeks later, we do another chase. If they still don't respond, we give them notice of inspection. You're months in at this point.
Yeah.
You can't do it any faster than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's a huge opportunity, and people are overthinking on the statutory period. I do think the Section 8 3 months is a mistake.
I do think so too.
But we'll see. We'll just have to get on with it. Yeah. See how we go.
I think in terms of another opportunity, this has obviously shaken up a little bit for some landlords. It's really put a spanner in the works for some people, which I don't think it's as drastic as what people are making it out to be.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're at the lower end of the spectrum now.
Yes.
you tend to be dealing with maybe a different type of tenant as well than potentially we deal with as a professional level tenant.
Very true.
So we may have a different situation. We have. I'm going to pick one property. I won't name it, but it's not necessarily. Well, there's the HMO and some flats in that area.
Yes.
They're not necessarily at what that top end professional. It's because it was part of a portfolio that we manage for those landlords. They are our problem properties.
Yes.
Right. So if you're dealing at that problem level, then maybe you're going to continue with the problem. So if you think about what you've got coming up, you've got the renters' rights bill, you've got potentially EPC upgrades. You've got, what's it, warm homes or what's it called?
Well, this is part of the renters' rights.
Yeah, what's it called?
It's the decent home standard.
Decent home standards.
Yeah, that includes Award's law as well, the mold.
The mold law.
Yeah.
So all of those things are coming down your road. If you have been at the bottom end of that property market, or you haven't maintained your property well because you've taken all the money out, that might be the people that are going to be looked at.
Yeah.
But that's, to me, I think there's a buying opportunity.
Oh, massive.
Because if I can,
landlords will sell.
Because if those properties come onto the market, then I can buy them, bring them refurb, because it's much easier to spend the money during the refurb phase than it is on a landlord phase, because I'm budgeting to buy property, refurb, refinance maybe, or by DRR, hence the book.
Yeah.
Quick plug for the book. Yeah. Financial freedom, BDRR, if you want to know how we do it. If you're going to do those things, you're going to plan that in, then we want those properties. So there's an opportunity to buy them, and potentially there's a buying opportunity, because if there's lots of those that come on the market, the pricing should be at a good level. And generally first-time buyers, which would normally buy those types of properties, can't buy them. Because who can afford a deposit on that refurb works? Right, no one. So I think there's a buying opportunity. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I think there's going to be a transfer of wealth on that basis, with those properties coming to the market. And I think this is probably why you're seeing it now, where a lot of corporate companies are buying significant portfolios. I saw one that bought 5,000 plus properties in one batch the other day. I was thinking, wow, that's a hell of a purchase, isn't it?
Far out.
Yeah. So I think the professional landlord's got to really thrive.
Yes.
I think especially the landlords with properties in their names, who maybe are earning more than 50k a year, who are under Section 24 tax as well. If they've got mortgages, I think it's going to be harder for them. And that's, just all of those things combined, I think it's going to be really challenging. So I think there's going to be a transfer of wealth from people who've got properties in their name to more corporate landlords due to all of these factors. And I think I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying there's an opportunity there.
Agreed.
Yep. Cool. Right. So any final points on the renters' rights?
No, I think we've covered it all.
No, yeah, I think so too. Right. So thank you very much, Amber.
No, thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us in the Financial Freedom Podcast. Hopefully that was a good interpretation of what's coming down the chain in terms of the Renters' Rights Bill. And we will catch you on the next one. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.